geriatric care manager. Hang on, jeez. Welcome to Navigating Aging. My name is Dr. Cheryl, and I'm a geriatric care manager. Um, and what that means is for over 20 years, I've assisted people, let's say adult children and their families, whoever their people are, helped people with the challenges of aging. And today's topic is about dementia and what to do when things become unmanageable. And so I've walked down this road with people and their loved ones with dementia for a long time, both uh, the process of keeping someone at home forever or keeping someone at home for as long as possible, and looking at what are the options when someone's either physical condition or behaviors start to become unmanageable for the family. And I was mentioning it to a friend this week what I do, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, we need you. My dad just is in the hospital with he's got dementia, and he ended up in the hospital with pneumonia, and we didn't even know what was going on." Because someone with dementia, that and some further on stages can't really communicate what's happening physically or if they're in pain. So sometimes you don't get the messages till it's too late. So just wanted to talk about some things to keep in mind if you've got a loved one with dementia at home, and how to take care of yourself and take care of them, especially when things get challenging. So what I find with dementia is that most families try to keep their loved one at home for as long as possible. Sometimes that's a conscious choice, and sometimes it's just what happens. They think, oh, mom or dad's memory is getting worse. They're starting to repeat themselves. They're having trouble with finding things. Complicated step-by-step mechanics of things that they would normally do gets more challenging. Things like that start to happen. And then maybe they go to the doctor and get a diagnosis. Maybe they don't. But time keeps creeping along. You just, like day after day, year after year, they keep just managing. It's kind of like they think there's no options, and really, actually, there is no cure for Alzheimer's, for example. But sometimes at the beginning stages, you could think, well, is this an Alzheimer's? Is this some type of different dementia? Can it get better? Is it something that be treated? Is it dementia, or is it something else like a thyroid problem or a urinary tract infection? But today we're talking about this person's already either been diagnosed or it's clear it's some type of dementia. And so usually this goes on for years. And oftentimes, if it's the adult children looking in on say it's two parents at home, oftentimes one of the parent without dementia will fill in the gaps for the other person, right? So sometimes it's not. Sometimes the person with dementia, their symptoms aren't really as noticeable because their loved one are putting together the pieces. But if you get that person with dementia alone, the kids are like, oh my gosh, this is really worse than we thought. So keep going along. And at some point, things usually become unmanageable. Sometimes that is because a fall happens. Sometimes that's because pneumonia happens and they have to go to the emergency room. Sometimes people start to wander off, get lost. Sometimes they become aggressive, so the behavior changes. And all those things usually end up with the person with dementia going to the hospital and finding out, okay, what's going on, and then moving to the next step. Sometimes it is the caregiver at home becomes exhausted, and they just, maybe they're reaching out to their, say if it's a wife at home caring for her husband, she might be reaching out to her adult kids or her friends going, I cannot handle this anymore. I am at my wit's end. I'm so tired. I've been up 24/7. My loved one's not sleeping, all the symptoms that come along with dementia. So at that point, it's pushed to the next step. And almost always when people say, like, well, how do I know when that thing is, when that next step is, when they're ready for the next step? And, what I found is that that next chapter presents itself and it becomes very obvious. Sometimes it's people like, well, I'm not sure if it's time yet, but if it's really, really time, it becomes obvious. And a lot of times caregivers maybe wait too long to get help. So as far as unmanageable, when is the next steps? What I suggest is first that you evaluate what's going on, and if it's like we need to call 911. Like if something is very serious, the person's unresponsive, they've got a fever, and they've not eating, things that you're concerned about their safety at home. That's a 911 call, and then let the hospital staff help you with finding out what the person, what's going on with the person, what they're, if it's something treatable, and what the next steps are. Now, if the person's at home and you're like, it's not a 911 call, but maybe the caregiver is frazzled or needing support, that's a great time to both take care of yourself, like the caregiver, to take care of yourself and become, I'll say, regulated to see, is this something happening with my loved one or is this something happening with me? So the caregiver might like, man, my stress level is really high and I'm not sleeping and my blood pressure is high. Then it's time to take care of the caregiver and find out, what you need to do to decrease your stress. Or is it about my loved one? Maybe their confusion all of a sudden starts getting worse. It's acute, and maybe they have a urinary tract infection, or maybe pneumonia and things like that. So you decipher is it me or is it the person with dementia that needs some support? When something becomes unmanageable, whether they go to the hospital or not, it's time to think about next steps. And what are those? What are your options? So one is, do they need to go to the hospital? Two, either after or before the hospital, does the person need adult daycare? So someone with dementia could go to an adult daycare or adult health daycare, where they have nursing and physical therapy. And that gives the caregiver a little bit of respite. So maybe they're gone to adult daycare from like 9 a.m. till 3. And it gives the caregiver a break. And then they're ready when their loved one comes back home. They're ready and rejuvenated. So adult day healthcare. Do they need caregiving in the home? So sometimes people will start like with 4 hours a day of hired caregiving a few times a week to give the caregiver a little break, and also to give the person with dementia some appropriate activities, because the caregiver tends to be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with them anymore. I'm exhausted. I need to have my own life. So if you get a caregiver or adult daycare, these folks are fresh. They just come in for like 4 hours, and they can be trained so that they can provide appropriate activities for the person with dementia. So it's a win-win. And then sometimes it's time for assisted living or memory care. And that's a great opportunity. It's a great answer for a lot of people, and some people have a challenge with that option because maybe they told their loved one at some point, I'll always keep you home, or I'll never put you in one of those places. Now, one of those places used to be not a great option. Like a nursing home was the only option. But now they have some really great options with memory care that are beautiful and that have great staff. And it's a really great option. And I've seen some people really thrive in a good assisted living and memory care. And sometimes that comes down to um, really budget. What can the person afford? And so there's options. There's some that are, most of them are private paid. And then if someone doesn't have resources, then they do have nursing homes. Um, I was going to say sometimes they've got a Medi-Cal waiver program, so the state pays for either a nursing home or assisted living. Those are harder to find, especially nowadays, but nursing home can be an option if the person doesn't have any resources. Um, and then I'd suggest the caregiver really find support for themselves. So sometimes that's friends, family. Sometimes it's a group like this. Sometimes it's through the Alzheimer's Association. They've got great programs of support. Also, sometimes with local churches. So finding support for the caregiver and also looking for professional assistance. So if you want to know, I'm not sure what the next step is, but I think they need a next step. I think there's something else is needed. If you talk to, say, a care manager like myself, or, well, I was going to say elder law attorney, but that's if legal paperwork needs to be put in place. But I think the care manager is really the best person to talk to. And there's a national organization of care managers, and the website is agingcarelife.org. Aging Life Care. Aging Life Care? Aging Life Care. It changed its name from geriatric care managers to aginglifecare.org. And then anywhere you are, you can put your zip code in, and the local care managers will show up. And usually they are nurses or social workers and that have been down this road before that can assist you. So you don't need to feel like you are alone. There are lots of people out here to help. And one place that's always a go-to to contact if you need help right away, and they even have a 24/7 helpline, is the Alzheimer's Association. So there's some information for you. And I'll be happy to open up the floor for questions, comments, sharing. If you've got any on this topic, we'll take that first, and then we'll go into just open sharing. Let me share. You can either unmute or raise your hand. All right, we'll open it up to any topic. Jeannie.
Yeah, I'm Jeannie. I don't have this going on. My sister had that and she passed and they did keep her at home. Um, yeah. But I was just wondering, they have so many watches, and I was just wondering, like, if you had someone that was getting lost, if they had one of those watches, if it had a GPS on it, and then the caregiver could find them,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah, that's a great point. So if it gets to a point that you can still keep people at home, so there's kind of this middle ground. I talked about, like, oh, it's unmanageable at home, and then like either caregiving or assisted living. There is a point in between there that people try to make the home work better. So it's looking for safety
Yeah.
features around the house, like in the bathroom, make things easier. Put in grab bars. Sometimes it's putting in ramps. And yes, now there's not a perfect system for wandering people still, but like an Apple Watch is great if the person will keep the watch on.
Well,
There's
that's good.
find there's Find My there's air tags. Those aren't a perfect match. I've used those, and we have them in our cars. I use them in my luggage and things like that. But the air tags, their Apple product, right? Uh, they need another Apple product nearby to find them. So
Oh,
if there's not that around, it won't update all the time. So that's not a perfect system. But the Apple Watch is actually an excellent idea, and it does have fall detection. So if someone falls, it will call people. If you can find a way, like if the person won't take off a watch, or maybe there's a watch band that's not easy to take off, or to put the Apple Watch on the person in some other way. Uh, Sometimes I was thinking of like what I was director of programs at Alzheimer's, what's called Alzheimer's Family Services, but they had adult daycare. So people came from like 8 in the morning till 4 at night, and we had to think about how do we keep track of people, because some people had gotten lost there before. They wandered away from the building. And we even had like police officers that were inventing things that you could sew in, that's like, but it was always like tracking devices. They thought, oh, we tracked these cars when I was a police officer, we'll track people. And it was always the problem was always how do we keep it on the person? And so it's not a 100%. There's not like one product I let go. Okay, this will solve all the problems. But Apple
yeah,
Watches are great, and somebody else might have another solution for that.
yeah. The only other
Um,
thing I could add is that my niece has I don't know how you do this, but from her house, which is I don't know 15 miles away or something, she has it set up so she can see into her dad's house, see what he's doing or to make sure
mhm,
he's okay.
yep.
How you do that, but
Well, that may be a camera in his house. So you have to get, that's
maybe.
it's a
Oh,
interesting ethical dilemma, right? Cameras are always interesting. Like you want to just put them in areas that, people like you probably wouldn't want to put it in the bathroom, for example. That's a personal space. But then oftentimes people fall in the bathroom. So sometimes there's cameras that you can put in the living room, for example, or there's also motion sensors. And, uh, the technology is getting smarter and smarter all the time. So sometimes the motion sensors will track what their usual movements are. So if the person usually goes from their bedroom to the living room to the bathroom, and maybe they're doing that 4 times a day, and if they only did it once that day, it could send you a message like, "Hey, their movements are different today. It's something to watch out for." So right now, I think that probably as far as if someone's living by themselves, or maybe even it's a couple, this older couple with one person having dementia, with the person without dementia's uh, approval, okay, you could put a camera in the house and just kind of keep an eye on things. Um, yes, it's definitely a way to kind of patch together care so that the person stays at home as long as possible. And sometimes it's that person enjoys being at home, and sometimes it's financial. Sometimes like, you
yeah.
know what, we've got about 2 years worth of money saved up for assisted living memory care. So we need to keep them at home for as long as possible before memory care. And so things like the Apple Watch, things like cameras in the house, things like sometimes if a person wandering, sometimes if you put a lock like way up high that they're not looking for, you could lock a door. Um, so there are things to keep in mind to implement at home to keep them home longer. Yes, it's a good question. Yeah.
Well, and if like my wife, she had dementia in the earlier stages, basically just the medical alert bracelet that has the contact information where it was locked. She just plain get lost in the supermarket or whatever. And that I got her an electronic watch, but at the time I was so burned out that I didn't figure out how to make, how to implement it. Uh, it can be a little bit of implementation according to what kind of electronic device you got. But that medical alert bracelet was great. I mean, we're both in the supermarket, and she kind of comes and goes a little bit, and she goes and where am I? But she's got that bracelet, and I hear over the PA system, Don Morris. That was it was a good.
That's a good solution. Yeah, the Alzheimer's Association has a bracelet that they offer. I think it's called Safe Return Program. So on the bracelet, they could just put the phone number to the program, and then if the person gets lost and they're found and the person sees their bracelet, they can call that phone number and it's registered with the program. And so that they would call, like the program would call you and say, hey, we found your wife. So that's another thing. It feels so old school, right? That program's been around so long. Feels like you need a home phone, to dial that number. But it has been helpful. Yeah.
Well, I didn't know about that. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and all these are there's no one thing. There's no one answer for everybody, right? It's just things to try, options that you have. Yeah. I wish I could just say, hey, do this. But there's so many kind of different situations. And yes, Jeannie.
Yeah, does Medicare pay for anything? I haven't looked in the book, but I seems like they would.
So Medicare pays for medical visits,
Right.
surgeries, doctor's appointments. They don't pay for home care. So someone needs a caregiver at home, it's almost always private pay. Some people have long-term care insurance. So that type of insurance would pay for some of that. There's actually a brand new company, and it's Medicare has some programs going on right now that are kind of pilot programs. One of them is through a company called Ripple, RIPPL, Ripple or Ripple Care, and it is providing I think it's in 4 states right now, and it's expanding. But it's a Medicare paid for benefit specifically for dementia. So someone has dementia, they can access this, get Ripple involved, and they go along with your primary care doctor. But they provide specialty care by licensed social workers, nurses, and a whole care team. They call the wraparound services, wrap around the patient with dementia and their family. And the idea is to keep them out of the hospital and at home. So that is, from what I can tell, it's a really great program that's starting. But adult daycare doesn't usually get paid for by Medicare. The VA or vets benefits sometimes will pay for adult day health care, but not that I know of. Now, some Medicare HMOs provide benefits that straight Medicare doesn't. For example, some Medicare HMOs like Kaiser or Scan, things like those kind of companies that you can join. Sometimes they'll provide things like hearing aids or eyeglasses. So
Yeah.
the insurance landscape continues to change. So whatever the person would need, I would suggest calling the insurance to see, or looking it up online to see if it's a benefit. But typically, Medicare doesn't pay for the things that we've been talking about.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hmm. Since there's so
Good
many
question.
people that have that.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's a good question, and it is eye opening because a lot of people just plan their whole lives like, no problem, I'm getting older, but it's no problem. If I need help, Medicare will pay for it. And, like I said, Medicare will pay for physician's visits, hospital visits, surgeries, but for preventative care or for, dementia specific care, up until now, they haven't. Another thing sometimes people will hire a physical therapist to come to the house and do kind of a safety check to see what they suggest, or as you want to make sure maybe there's grab bars available or there's good lighting at home so people don't trip in the middle of the night, if they need ramps and things. So the biggest thing is try to keep people out of the hospital. Mm-hmm. The 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 point I would say, that's in addition to the person with dementia, it's almost equally, maybe not more important, to consider and pay attention to the care and the self-care for the caregiver. Caregiving can take up to 10 years off a person's life, all the stress and everything. So, yeah, I want to tell you a story, but then it's not a positive story, except if you take it for like, hey, I really need maybe just take the essence. Take care of yourself so you can help take care of others. I had a personal experience with one of the son of one of my first clients, um, passed away suddenly because of all the stress, and it just shook me. I was like, this is, they talk about it, take care of yourself so you can help take care of others, but that was a real firsthand demonstration of how important it is to take care of yourself. And sometimes the person who's on the ground taking physical care, or even away, but maybe is worrying a lot about their person, it's a lot of stress on them. So, do the things that to take care of yourself. Stay regulated and, get enough sleep. Make sure you're eating and drinking, moving. And then I find a big area is sometimes caregivers feel overly responsible for their loved one. So remind yourself that this is this person's journey, the person with dementia, it's their journey. Yes, you are here to keep them safe, to be a safe container for them, but you can't do it for them. You can't live their life or reverse the disease. Um, so it's a long journey of caring for yourself, um, and learning and getting the support of other people who know what you're going through, like they've been down the road before. Care.
For whatever reason, uh, I was just reminded of how important it is to know, especially if you're in a caregiving role, how important it is to know who you can receive from. I think, I mean, I don't know if everybody's wired like me, but sometimes I think I've just got to handle it. And, I don't want to be an imposition on other people or whatever those stories are that we tell or that I tell.
Mm-hmm.
And to know like who are those people that you keep in your back pocket that you can just be wherever you are, and you can receive support from them, because um, if you're on that journey, I think it's inevitable that there's going to come a time when you're going to need some support, and to know who those people are ahead of time um, seems like a really valuable piece of info. I also have another question, and this may not be completely on topic, but the stories that you've told over time reflect the ways that some people, when they go into dementia, just seem like they really get stuck in a very happy uplifting place. And even though they may be repeating things, it's like just really positive things. And some people, it seems like there's a lot more anger or violent behaviors. And I guess I'm just curious. Any thoughts about it? Because I'm like, look, if I'm going to get dementia, I'd really like to get stuck on the positive.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if we could choose that, but just wondering if there's a pattern with that, or if you've had any, and if you know anything more about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first of all, thanks for reminding me about the importance of, number one, like when something like this happens, whether it's dementia or your loved one has something going on, it's finding out who are my people, who can I receive from right at this time in my life. Okay, so with different types of dementia, it can, people have different responses. So the changes in their brain affect them differently. Frontal temporal dementia will often have more behavioral challenges sometimes. And then also it depends on how the disease affects the different parts of their brain. And then part of it is what was their personality like before? And then maybe, what are they clearing in their life? What life lessons that they have? So it's a combination of things. I was talking to someone recently. So their loved one, I helped their mom move into memory care, and she was having some behavioral things which she wasn't having at home. And so first I think of, so she was kind of being aggressive towards people, and not really appropriate. Okay. And this is like such a sweet woman. So what we looked at first is there anything medically going on? So does she have a UTI? Is she dehydrated? Is she in pain? Is she hungry? Things like this. Is it just an adjustment to the community? And then we started thinking, does she have anything in her life that she's working through? For example, like for us here, like as we move through our life, sometimes there's a thing like, oh gosh, there's that memory I had of when I was a kid, and that really bothers me still, and I could do some self-forgiveness and clear that thing. So there's a whole thought process. We go, okay, go, gosh, I cleared that thing, and so I'm not holding it anymore. But if I kept holding it, it might, like things like that I have that I need to clear, that come up to clear. Like sometimes, like I might get like really mad at people for no apparent reason. Like, why am I getting mad at that person? Oh, that person reminds me of my dad, and when I was 5, he did that. So I'm like, oh, great, it's not this. I can clear that, and then my behavior clears up also. So you think everybody's got these things in their life, right? So if someone's got dementia, maybe they can't clear things like they used to, and so that the behavior might be one way they're doing that. Some people with dementia know that they can't remember anymore, and some people don't, and that affects them differently. And some people, I've heard a number of like 20% of people like with Alzheimer's know they have dementia and they're mad about it. So now, how do you know how that's going to affect people? Like some people, like they don't know that they don't remember anymore, and they're just happy. They're just going through life. There's no problem because they're just living their life. They don't know that they don't know. So I don't think I don't have an answer for you as far as like, oh, this is definitely what happens, except for particular types of dementia really do affect certain parts of the brain more. And then other ways, it's a combination of things like, oh, that person was always nice. And I have heard many, many times, you know what? My dad became nicer after he had Alzheimer's. He just personality changed. He was nicer. So it's a little bit of everything. Thanks, Karen. Hey, Michelle.
Michelle. And I don't know if I know what my question is other than what do you do when the caregiver won't take care of themselves? Which is kind of the problem I'm dealing with in terms of my mother being the primary caregiver for my father.
Mhm.
Um, she literally last year ended up so sick that she was in the hospital by the time I got her there. They admitted her thinking that she was septic. Because she hadn't been taking care of herself. They both caught COVID. She had a UTI going on at the time that they got COVID, and she just got so darn sick. So for over a year now, I've been saying, you've got to take better care of yourself. We've got to take care of you. We've got to things have to change because you can't sustain what you're doing. And so then the beginning of this year, he had a temper tantrum and she had a full-on meltdown and was like, that's it. I can't do this anymore. I've got to get out of this marriage. And so I've just been going through hell with the two of them for the last 2 months. Now she's gone back on that. Okay, I don't need to divorce him. And we're in the process of moving them into an independent living situation. They actually get life alert pendants there. And then the nice thing is if we get to the point that dad has to go into assisted living or memory care, then they're already considered residents as part of this organization, and it's easier to get him moved in to the situation that he needs at that point. But I still go, okay, mom, at what point are you going to take care of yourself? And the other thing is I'm the only child. It's just me and my husband that they have here family wise. And I'm in her dumping ground. So I struggle to take care of myself in the midst of all of this because of family karma and lots of, the history of domestic violence and things. I have a sense of over responsibility for my mother in terms of protecting her from my father. And I just go, what the heck do I do? Where's the book? Who can tell me what to do and how to encourage her to take care of herself without having to be her dumping ground for everything?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question, Michelle. And I definitely hear the heaviness of that. Yeah. So light to your family and the whole situation, first of all. Um, I would say, it's something we talk about here quite often is that we can only do what we can do, and then we allow the other people to have their own karma, right? It's super hard when it includes someone with dementia. If people we have, parents, friends, and we might all think about right now to go wow, they're just really not taking care of themselves. They could, if they did this thing, it could be better, but they don't, right? If they would just move a little, they would be in less pain or whatever. If they'd eat differently, whatever it is, wish for the other person, but they don't. But if they don't have dementia, then it's easy. Well, it's easier, I'll say. It's easier when we think, oh, we're just going to let them have the dignity of their own process. And then, we learn about boundaries and taking care of ourselves, which is super hard. I also come from oh, I'm supposed to take it. I've got this this deep caring for people who I love, especially my parents. And then, it goes into a over responsibility. And so I've learned over the years with my clients that what I've also learned is people are really resourceful, that especially if they don't have dementia. Some people will be they might call out for help. They might call you to go, hey, I really need your help. And then they kind of put, you act as a dumping ground, and then they walk away free. Or maybe if you're not available one time, they'll end up solving their own problem. And then it's oh man, I thought you needed me. And here you are, you have the resources to just do that yourself. I've done that a lot. Until I go like, oh, I get it. You can do it yourself. And it's not mine to do. So it does get complicated when someone has dementia. All right. So if your dad has dementia here, right? You can't just like go, I'm not going to be involved. Or you could because your mom is there. But if someone has dementia, there's like, okay, well, there's a safety net that, it needs to be in place. And at the same time, if you think, how much of this can you let your mom deal with? Because your parents have their own karma, their own dynamics, their own, like they've been doing this together for a very long time, right? They got together for a reason. They're staying together for a reason. And these dynamics are just more of that, right? So, and it may have been private for a really long time, but now that they're older and have dementia, now it's more, you might be more involved. So in one way, it's, you ask yourself, like, what is mine to do? And am I overdoing it, right? Can I back off? Is this my responsibility? I might suggest that even if you stopped answering the phone for your mom and let them just deal with things, right? So you're taking care of yourself. You're like, hey, mom, you set some boundaries with her, for example. But at the same time, you, especially being an only child, are making a plan B because eventually they're going to need more help, right? And it'll come to you. It'll come on your doorstep. This is yours to handle. And the beautiful thing is that you don't have to handle it yourself. You can get professional help, right? You can go like, hey, this situation needs help. I'm going to call a care manager to help me with this situation, or a social worker, or maybe I was going to say a friend, or someone to help you, so you don't have to be the rescuer. Although I'm sure you could. You seem very capable and smart and caring. You could totally do it, right? But you don't need to do that. It doesn't have to be all on your back. And so, I'd ask you, who's your person or people? Who can you receive support from right now? Is that your husband? Is that you have friends that you can get counsel from?
Husband does a decent job of being supportive. I'm the only one in the family who has any affiliation with homicide.
Mhm.
So he obviously doesn't have the same perspective on any of this, right? But he does the best he can. I do have some friends who also, are here, local ministers. I do have people I can reach out to. It's a matter of getting over my stubbornness and being willing to reach out and say, hey, I'm having a hard time. I need support. And I'm getting better at that. But yeah, it's just been a struggle. It's made worse by the fact that my dad's also a type 1 diabetic. So that complicates all of it and makes his care a little more difficult. And I learned that my mother's just very difficult to communicate with. Um, and it's very difficult to have conversations with her. And even like I tried to be like, I tried to take that step back. Okay, I found you a realtor who specializes in, helping, you know, people in your kind of situation with downsizing and, get you connected with estate sale people. And I tried to like just take that step back. And then it kind of ended up being a mess that I had to a communication mess that I had to step in and help sort out because I had my mom crying to me that, the estate sale company was trying to like, sell all their stuff before they're even moved into the apartment and like, taking control of their lives. And So I feel like even when I try to take that step back, there she is just making a mess and sucking me right back in.
Yes, that is what you just said right there is so normal. That's what parents do right there. You named it, you nailed it. Or they try to do it. And this is generalized, right? Not all parents, a lot of parents, for whatever reason, right? And sometimes it's our friends do it with us. And your question was, how can I get the caregiver, your mother, to take better care of herself? And um, chances are she's just going to do it her way until she cannot anymore. And when you just make peace with that, that's going to bring you a lot of peace and you're going to sleep better at night. And she's got every right to do that because she doesn't have dementia, right? She's got capacity. She's an adult. She's making her choices. She is married to your dad. She's the primary caregiver. She's the primary caretaker, right? To them. So as much as, I mean, if you would have asked me 20 plus years ago when I first started doing this, I'd say, oh, yes, you can offer her help. Oh, yes, you could, I'll do all these things. And what I have seen over time, and I could probably I could have some amens from the audience, they're just going to do it their way. You can offer, because sometimes people are like, well, I don't really even know the resources. You're like, if you'd like some resources, I can give them to you. Oh, great, thanks, I would like that. And then they never call, most likely. Or maybe they call, but they're not quite ready. They're going to call that personal trainer, after whatever. There's something. After the summer, after this, after that. There's always something. And you can just drive yourself really crazy with that. So you could offer, and if you could be neutral with them saying yes or no and going, great, I did what I could. Like, what is it in your heart that you can offer? You know, um, yeah. I mean, it really does come down to that. And again, at the same time, at the back of your head, at some point something's going to happen. It might be a year from now, 2 years, who knows? But so you've got a plan in place, or where to find me or Arlene at the time. You're like, hey, this happened. Now what? And there's going to be an answer at that time. But I think just encouraging your mother as much as you can. But if that's a phone call, it might turn south real quick if she starts complaining or sucking, your energy. Maybe encourage her to call if she has a different friend. And it might be a short time that you need to be involved with her as far as, look, I just really like, they've decided to move. This is going to be 1 month. I'm just going to help her move for 1 month. And then when she's there, then you can kind of back away because there'd be more support around them. That would be reasonable, you know. But I wouldn't expect your mom to change. And I think my overall advice to either parents of small children, we have a 17-year-old, or adult children with their parents, is just love them. Just love them and just let them be, let them do their thing. And then the freedom that you give them, give to yourself. Love yourself. Let you be, you know, I think a lot of the things that we take on are more than our responsibility because you got a big heart and your parents raised you to be giving and caring and very capable. And now they get to go make choices about what their life is. And you and your husband have made different choices. And then you look at your husband and you say, I'm really glad I go home with you at night. Susan's waving. Susan just dropped off. She'll come back. How's that feeling in there, Michelle? Say that again. I didn't pick up.
They're just being okay with them making their own decisions and not feeling like I have to run in and save them from their own karma. Especially when mom's like, look, here's my karma, fix it for me.
Yeah. Yes.
Reframing it to I love you enough, I'm gonna let you work through your own karma, mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Karen's got her hand up.
I just feel compelled to say it's a process. This whole letting go of the responsibility takes your own work. And my mom doesn't have dementia, but I deal with her making decisions that I don't love. And, then feeling responsible for trying to, make her life better. And it's just a process. So I would just encourage you to be gentle with yourself, be forgiving with yourself. If your experience is anything like mine, you'll get dragged in and out multiple times, and every time you'll learn something valuable and get clearer and clearer about what you want and what you're capable of doing and how many boundaries you're willing to hold. So God bless you. I really feel, I feel what's going on.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, the visual I see is like the Charlie Brown with the football. They move the football is kicked. There's been so many times that I've gone through that and I'm like, darn, I did it again. And it's like, I get to love myself, remind myself I'm so loving. I've got such a big heart. I really wanted to help. I thought that was a good thing, but I see that I could just love them, love me, and let them. And then it's every time you just go do that again. Like Karen says, it's a process. It may not happen overnight. You may feel, just knowing that you don't have to. And then, say, look at maybe the rules that you have about what a good daughter does. Because if you talk to my 17-year-old, she's been through, she's been around people with this in assisted living and older people and dying people and all this stuff for her whole life. She just keeps asking us, hey, what assisted living do you want to live in? Do you want to move into when you're older? Like she's very clear. She doesn't have to take care of us, the sole caregiver. So she's good. So if you ever need a little chat about just let them go, not let them go. She's going to be involved, but let them do their thing. Yeah. All right. We'll finish up with Jeannie.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention in case Michelle isn't aware that Arlene has that Thursday night group on dementia. I went to that for a little while, but my sister's passed, so I don't go anymore. I think you sign up
No,
on that. Heartfelt.
Arlene's the one who told me about today's talk. So yeah, love
Oh,
Arlene.
okay.
Love that group.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, you're welcome back here anytime, Michelle. And I'm so glad you brought that to today because that's the whole reason we're here, especially today. God bless you and your family. All right. I love you all. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you. Hopefully, we'll see you again. Take care.
Bye.